speakers. This is Krista, and tonight our special guest is Sarah. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi. Sarah is the owner of Conjured Cardea, and she specializes in hoodoo, conjure, and rootwork. And she started her company in order to provide authentic botanicas, handmade spiritual supplies. And she's coming to us from Michigan. So thanks so much for joining us tonight, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation.
Oh, my pleasure. As I was telling you, I know very little about hoodoo, and I wonder if we could just start out by explaining to us what is hoodoo.
Well, I think the best way to explain it is a specific type of folk magic that was born in New Orleans, and it is a mixture of it's a very large mixture and amalgamation of many traditions and many paths. So of course we have the African diasporic traditions, because that was a main hub for slavery. So that's going to be your main emphasis, and their rootwork traditions that they brought from West Africa. And then you also have American Indian traditions that were combined in with that. There are also some Jewish traditions, some Irish traditions. So because that was such an epicenter of different types of people coming in and out of the country, you had a real melting. And we know America is as a melting pot, but that especially there. So it's heavily focused on, when I say root work, I mean working with herbs, roots, creating talismans. It's not that terribly different from any other type of folk magic when you break it down to that. And we have, we have powwow here in America, and we have Appalachian traditions. So we have several types of folk magic or, root work already established here in the US. Hoodoo is sort of centralized, born out of New Orleans. It's now practiced all over the country, and people are starting to practice it all over the world, but that is where it originated. So I think probably most of your followers will be familiar with folk magic. They probably have their own traditions and practices in that, if you have a large, pagan crowd or Wiccan crowd. So it's not that, it's mostly the centralization of where it was born from, not necessarily that it's super different execution-wise.
Okay, and so would it fall under the umbrella of a type of witchcraft?
Well, that depends who you ask, because there are many people who practice hoodoo with a Christian background. There are many people who practice it utilizing the Bible and Bible verses. So there are many who are that are Christians who would not consider it witchcraft at all. But if you're asking me personally, I think there's a lot of witchcraft in the Bible itself. So I would say that yes, it does fall under that. I think if you look at the similarities and the definition of what that is, I think to say that it's not is just because you don't like the word witchcraft, and so you don't want to associate it with that.
Right. Yeah. Some people have a negative connotation of the word, so they don't want to. Yeah, right. And so how are hoodoo and voodoo different?
Well, so hoodoo is a practice like reading tarot cards, or working with, say, making herbal magic. Things. It's a practice that you adopt, that you use to achieve things. So voodoo is a religion. So it's like saying the difference between, I'm trying to think of like maybe something like a common hobby that Christians do, but that's not Christianity. That's just something that they practice together,
Like quilting.
I can't think of a good example. But so one is a practice, and then one is a religion. So people will often practice both, but they're not mutually exclusive, and they also do not have to go together. So you can do one or the other, or you can do both. In New Orleans, it's very common to do both or have traits of both involved in your practice.
And so what are the common tools you use in hoodoo?
Well, I think the things that probably, a lot of candles, which is very, that's a staple in many traditions like this, any type of folk magic or witchcraft. I would say the things that I are a little less known or under or less utilized in other paths would be we use a lot of bones or sort of animal totem figures, things that are representative of the spirit of that animal or the power it possesses, the the things we associate that animal with that we want to either incorporate into ourselves or into what we are trying to manifest. So candles, a lot of we do work with some stones. I work with gemstones. That doesn't have to be a part of hoodoo. Very common ones in hoodoo are like pyrite and lodestone, but that's typically about as far as you see it go when you're studying. I do some gritting in my work, so I do utilize certain stones to sort of help channel energy into the work for a client. Um, a lot of oils, that's something that I specialize in my site, is conjure oils or conditioned oils, people will call them, which are just certain formulas created to help emphasize your work. It sort of acts as a conduit or like a fuel for your work. So oils are very common. Yeah, I don't think the tools are that terribly different, probably except for when it comes to the animal parts. Some people abstain from that. I'm pretty heavily, I use that pretty heavily in my work. So
And I've read that you apply the oils to candles quite often, right?
yes, that is usually you can use conditioned oils or conjure oils many ways. You can put them in your shampoo or your conditioner. You can put them in your bath water. You can use them as a hand rub before you're going to work on whatever you're going to work on or before you leave your home for the day. You can use them to dress candles, which is like putting it on the outside of the candle. And then if you were going to dress it further with herbs or powders, it would help make an adhesive sort of for that. You can also use it to fuel the candle, as in like dropping it around the flame so that it gets utilized that way by the candle. You can use them on incense charcoal, to put drops on incense charcoal to create an incense that's sort of, the idea is to take the product and layer it into as many areas as you can in your life so that you are focusing on that goal as many times as you can throughout the day. So it's good to really work it, figure out how it works best for you in your daily routine.
So it's a way to help like focus your intention, focus your energy.
Yes, exactly. It's like, it's like the way I would help, refocus myself, reconnect myself to my goal every time I use it and every time I involve it in whatever ways I'm working it into throughout my day. I think a lot of people buy conditioned oils or conjure oils or hoodoo oils, sometimes they're called, and they just think they don't have a clue what to do with it. They buy it because it's very enticing, and they look very magical, and they're pretty to have around. But then people are like, oh, well, what do I do with that? I'm like, what can't you do with it? Like you can do everything with it, So, but I'm sort of used to thinking that way. And if this is new to you, then you have to be introduced into a whole, operating system that you didn't know before. So it makes sense that people have a little bit of a hurdle to get over with the learning process there.
Yeah, for sure. There's sounds like there's like lots of I don't know, layers and levels that you can go with this.
Yes, absolutely.
So, okay, so conjure and root work. What do those words mean exactly?
I would say root work as a earth magical system where you are utilizing um, items from your natural environment. That's typically how it would have started. You would have used native herbs, plant materials that were around you. To this would require you either know the medicinal properties of those herbs. So this is something you would have, been passed down through generations now. Of course, we have books that we read things from, and we have the whole internet as a source. Um, and also the doctrine of signatures. So the doctrine of signatures tells us that whatever an herb or a plant looks like, that's the area it rules spiritually. So if it looks like a hand, it would be something you would use to maybe obtain work or opportunity for yourself. If it looked like a heart, it would be something that you would use to, draw love into your life, or maybe for healing heartache, something like that. There are different. That's how we sort of, the very, very basis of where we're going to categorize what we work with. Okay, so Earth Magical System. Native plants around you, you learn how to incorporate them, imbue them not only with, you believe they possess O'Shea themselves, which is their inherent energy, but also something you put your own energy to have this sort of, symbiotic relationship with, this working relationship with, where it's, sort of a talisman, and you're working with each other's energy. You see it as a living being still, Mm-hmm. And then conjure, I would say, is when you are using the spirit. Using is not a nice word. When you are evoking or invoking the spirit world or specific spirits to help you either with guidance in your life, guidance for those around you, to pray to, to give honor to give offerings to. Those are typically, I think, when people think of conjure, it's just to call on a spirit to help you. You're asking them for something, and that is part of it. But I want people to sort of get past that and get past the idea that that realm just sort of exists as like some sort of magic lamp, and you rub it and a genie comes out to answer your questions and do your bidding for you. So I would like to sort of move past that in what conjure means today, is to look at it as a way to really establish a connection with the spirit world, and for it to have reciprocity versus just, taking, asking. I want people to focus more on making a relationship and paying respect and giving honor and seeing what develops in your life because you do those things, not because you asked, but because you did it, came from a place of respect with it.
Yeah, I was listening to one of your videos earlier, and some people were asking you questions. Someone was looking for help with finances and prosperity, mm-hmm. and you had recommended that they leave an offering, even just outdoors, like could be mm-hmm. seeds or something. And I thought that was interesting. I really like that. So it's kind of like.
Yeah. I think I often use the analogy in my videos that if you keep, it's like if you keep asking a friend for something and you keep asking them and asking them and asking them and asking them, and then, it's not, you keep asking them, you're going to wear out the relationship. It cannot just be one-sided. You have to do, and it's the best, I think, for you to take the first step and start, opening the communication, and you do that with offerings. At least that's how it is, and that's how it is in my tradition. Is offerings is a gesture of respect and honor and faith. So I think it's it's like, if you need something, what can you give first, and then see where that gets you with your need. Usually the need, in my experience, will be fulfilled. See where you can help first, see where you can give first.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. So what is your background? How did you end up, being, are you a priestess?
I am a priestess, yes. I have been initiated. I actually grew up with a lot of this in my family, and it was just so normal for me that I never even, I have not even ever thought about my life being any other way, or it was not unusual or weird or anything like that. It wasn't even something I thought about, just because it was just so normal. It was normal to the point it wasn't even really given a name. It was just sort of what we did. So my family is from Kentucky. So that's, and then I have some in Georgia, I have some in Florida. And then, so how we ended up here is a lot of the people in Kentucky who were like working in the mines there, they would drive up to Michigan to get jobs in Michigan working at the Ford Motor Plant. That was very, very common. So that's how a lot of Southerners ended up relocating up here, was to come work at Ford.
Oh, I see. And so you've been doing this as your career for quite a number of years.
Yes, full-time career, 10 years. I did it another 10 years before that, not full-time. I had a day job, and then this is something I would do on the weekends. I've had a coven for 20 years, maybe 19 years, I think. So it was, it started off with just serving my community and my coven and my friends. And then it just, little by little, it just sort of became, full time. So, and I never really steered it in that direction. But that's how it happened, and I didn't fight it. So I guess that's the best way I can explain that.
And now you've got a huge following on Facebook and Instagram under Conjured Cardea. Where does Cardea come in? What is that?
So Cardea is the Roman goddess of doorways and hinges and thresholds.
Ah.
So the idea I wanted, it's also where the word cardiac comes from, like the hinges and valves in your heart. I wanted the site to be, if you go on the site, yes, there's a lot of products and a lot of services for sale, but I do my best to provide lots of historical and cultural and traditional uses of the items. So the idea was you could come to the site, and if you wanted to buy something, that's fine. If you don't want to buy something, or you don't have the funds, you can still get education from it without it costing you anything. So I've tried very hard to make it educational, and my blog is on there, my YouTube channel is linked on there, my other interviews are linked on there. So if you can't buy a book or you can't buy items to practice with, you could at least go to the site. And I think I would have loved that site. I would have loved to have come across that site 20 years ago, even already growing up with it. I still would have, because it's concise, everything's in one spot, and people tell me all the time, oh, I go to your site every day and I read a little bit more and I learn from it. It's great, without an investment for anyone.
Yeah, it's a great source of information.
Thank you. And so that was I wanted it to be a gateway for people. I wanted it to be the door for people. You could come in and you could look around for free. And if it led you someplace else, great. If it wasn't your thing, that's great too. But it's open and it's there. And I try to be authentic with what I sell, and authentic with my practices, what I do, how I do things.
I read that you were wanting to offer more authentic handmade products as opposed to like the factory produced products. You were seeing a lot of that out there.
Yes. Yeah. So that is where, and there's nothing wrong with the big companies. I wholesale through those companies still, through some of them, but I do, all my candles are handmade now by a small one-woman owned company. I think it's Mystical Misty's Candle. That's who I get my candles through now. She's lovely. And everything else, I wanted to dress the candles myself, and I wanted to make the mojo bags myself. You can buy all that stuff from a big box Botanica, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I think there's a difference between, a big factory of people just sort of, churning out mojos and candles, and who knows if these people are even into that. Who knows if they're even trained in it, or who knows if they even believe in it, So everything passes through my hands. And if you're getting, a candle or an oil or a wash or a soap, it's made by me. So, and that's how I want to keep it. So, and to let people know, being in the public, letting people get to know me, so you have an idea of whose energy is going into it,
Yeah, and one of our members is just asking the name of the website again.
Yes, it is shop.conjuredcardea.com. and I'm happy to sell it or whatever afterwards. I'm sure there'll be a link or whatever. So it
Yeah,
shouldn't.
and I think if you just Google Conjured Cardea, which is in the heading of this interview, you'll find it because that's how I came across it when I was
Yeah.
just checking things out. Yeah. So, um, so it's interesting to me that, growing up, this was all just the way things were done. And so that's very different than where I grew up in rural Canada. And from, certain movies and things like Hoodoo and Voodoo, I guess more had almost like a dark, mysterious kind of realm to it. Like, do you remember the movie The Skeleton Key?
Oh yes, I'm very
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah. But after, talking with you and reading about it stuff, it doesn't seem dark at all.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about the media wanting to mystify things just for profit,
Yeah.
which I think is what a lot of it is. There are, um, I can tell you a couple of reasons why I think it's like that. For one, it is based in an African practice, and um, I hate to say this, but this is not news to anyone that in this country, it is things, people, and things that are considered dark or black are always going to be. That's always going to be associated with the negative. It's been like that since humans have existed. That's just how it is. And, obviously we're taking a lot of steps now to address that, right? To get over this, to move past that. But that's a big part of it, is that it was based in African traditions, and that is terrifying to people. So another part of it is that, we don't have the rule of three or the law of return in this tradition. So
Oh,
I think some of the work that we're willing to do in this tradition is what could be considered left-handed or dark, because there are places we're willing to go with our work that is completely forbidden and taboo in other spiritual paths.
oh,
So
really?
because if you're not, you in a lot of spiritual paths, there's no hexing, there's no cursing, there's no revenge work, which all of that is, that's oversimplified as to how that comes about, and the methods that are used to, what's the word I want to use? The methods that are used to execute that type of work. It's much more involved than just, you did this to me and I'm going to do this to you, but 10 times worse. That's not the case when we're doing that kind of work. But I think that that's a big difference in why it's considered dark and it's sort of mystified, is because we are willing to go to certain places with the work that other paths will not, because they have some sort of retribution that they are afraid of.
Interesting. So, so hex work is part of it.
Yeah, it can be. That is not something that we are, that's, I think most, I'm not going to say everybody does it who practices hoodoo, but that is very commonly accepted, that's part of it. It's perfectly okay. If you can do, if you can do all of the work for, the higher level sort of, things you want to achieve and manifest, then it only makes sense to balance it, that you can work on both sides of it. It's a full spectrum of work. It's not just, it's not just the fun, light, happy stuff. You have, as a professional worker, you have to be willing to, get your hands dirty and tackle things that are, things that are more difficult. You're dealing with people who want to get a divorce, but, cannot, or people who are being abused, or I deal with, that's all the time. I hear that from people. So you want to, you want to correct that and restore the balance for these people. And that's why I say it's not a dark thing when you start to break it down. It's that people don't understand our methodology to get there.
That makes sense. That really clarifies it in my mind. Thank
Oh,
you.
good, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, yeah, when you say like there's, people that are abusing others, then that sort of situation does need to be rectified.
Right, right. And it's not that, oh, you're abusing me and I'm going to abuse you back. It's not that. It's really more asking for the spirits, the powers that be, your God, your goddess, your deity, whatever, to, to say, to get their attention and say, hey, this is, this is happening. Please find some sort of way to bestow justice and restoration here for me so I can move on with my life and be happy and productive as everyone deserves to be.
So Hoodoo, works with spirit, and so are you a medium?
I would not call myself a medium, and not everyone who practices hoodoo works with spirits. Some
Okay.
people just some people just keep it to the root work practice. Like some people read tarot cards and they think and I'm not saying think to be patronizing. I'm just saying as an example, they believe that that the tarot cards are a manifestation of what's in your own subconscious. And then some people who read tarot cards, they believe that it's divine guidance coming through the cards. Okay, so there's two ways to do that. So it would be similar with hoodoo. Some people just utilize the roots for and the herbs for the ashe they possess, and to them that is all that's there. There is no higher being associated with it or anything like that. So and that's not usually, that's like a real like nitpicky thing people don't even get into. But I just wanted to clarify, since I'm trying to be very astute here. So
You're doing a great job.
and then I'm sorry, I think I forgot the rest of your question.
Well, I think you covered it, but
Okay.
like I asked if you were a medium, if that's
yes,
part of your work.
No, I would not consider myself a medium. I do have my own spirits that I get signals from. And that is, I do it, it's so weird because it's like so rare, but I get it through scent for me. I think there's a name, it's like Claire it's like got something to do with the name, with the word olfactory. I can't remember the name for it though. There's a couple of names for it. So but I would never say like, somebody could sit here and talk to me and I could tell them about, they're deceased or anything like that. I don't have that ability, and I would not consider myself a psychic either, even though I can use tarot cards as a form of divination. I still do not consider myself a psychic by any means.
Okay. So you mentioned the word, is it O'Shea? Ashe?
Ashe, yeah, Ashe, or it's spelled ASHE with a schwa over the E, or ASE, both ways.
Okay. And what does that word mean?
So that's the natural energy or power that a living thing possesses. That's its just natural sort of essence that it has. So I have Ashe, you have Ashe, all the living stuff around us has Ashe. And it's also a word that you'll say as sort of like a blessing when you're like, maybe you're with somebody and something spiritual is going on, is to reinforce what's happening. You'll say Ashe, or sometimes you'll say it at the end of something. It's also a blessing. It's like a sort of culmination of that energy, or an acknowledgement of that energy in that space right then.
Okay, I understand. So it's like I work with crystals a lot. So different crystals have different energy for different purposes. So it seems like the plants, botanicals, the roots that you use, it's the same idea. Is that right?
Precisely. That's
Oh.
it. That is just another. People say, oh, you feel different energies from different stones or whatever, and that's why this stone is used for this. The color and the chemical composition of it and all of that. Same thing. Same thing with herbalism. Or using. I want to say herbalism. When I say herbalism, I'm not just talking about the medicinal side of the herbs. I'm talking about just herb magic in general. But most people, when you say herbalism, they're going to think of the medicinal factors of the herbs. So
Right. But there's more. There's the kind of energy side of it.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Totally. And so would a cauldron be used with the herbs? Like, do you Are they heated in water? How does that work?
Well, it depends what you're doing. We do use cauldrons. I use a cauldron to burn spirit money in. That's very common. You will write your blessings or your gratitude, or maybe people you want to help, or things that you want to manifest in your life on spirit money, and then you will burn the spirit money to sort of release that as an offering. Um, and then, I use a mortar and pestle every day. And to me, the mortar is just another form of a cauldron. So you have a cauldron and you stir it, and that's what you're doing with a mortar and pestle. You're just grinding while you stir. It's the same tool. It's just on a smaller scale. So yes, yeah, absolutely. We have those vessels that we use. The cauldron also for incense. We burn a lot of incense. That's something I make my own blends of resin incense. So that is something else we would use the cauldron for.
Oh, wow. So you ship your products all over the world. I've seen you've had customers all over the place.
Yeah, I think I stopped counting at 100 countries, so I don't know how
Oh,
many it
wow.
is. I don't know how many it is, but it's very, it'll be like really obscure, like I have really good customers in Croatia, and I have really good customers in Japan and Thailand, and then a lot of Scandinavian countries. And it's so interesting. It is just so, and I think I know it's because, not to, I was going to like toot my own horn there. I would
Go
try to
ahead.
keep my shipping rates very reasonable. So I think I try to just cover like the bare minimum for shipping internationally for people, and they cannot get those things there anyway. They can't walk, they can't drive even to the next state, or whatever. They don't have states there, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
if we were forced to, that's probably the most any of us would have to do is drive over the state line to find a store. Like we can find
Right.
it here.
Yeah.
So I try to keep it really accessible for everyone is my point. And
Yeah.
I think because Hoodoo is centralized here in America, and people are starting to get educated in it, and so they have to mail order the supplies, obviously, because it just does not exist there.
What is a mojo bag?
So, well, I'm going to give you my definition of what a mojo bag is,
Okay.
because to me, it's very different than I see a lot of posts and a lot of information with what looks to me as ways to create what I would just call a charm bag. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mean to say just to be patronizing. I'm saying that to me, there's a difference between a charm bag and a mojo. So for me, when I make a mojo, how I was taught is that mojo comes from the word mojuba, which means to give praise. So when you are creating a mojo, you are creating an offering. So to me, when you create a mojo, it's to show a symbolism of something that you want to bring into your life. It's a representative house. It's a housing unit that represents that goal. To me, a charm bag is saying, I'm going to put these things in a bag, and these energies correlate together to draw this goal to me. So it's
Right.
two ways of going about the same intention, I suppose. But for me, a mojo is about again about offering first, and about it housing the goals that you want. But you're saying I'm creating this tiny sphere of what I want my own reality to be, and it's full of my gratitude that I already have and my blessings that I already have, and this is a housing unit for that. But it's also representative of an idea of things that I want to bring into my life as well.
And do people generally wear them? Is it just like a small thing they'd wear around their neck, or?
I think most people wear them. I'm not going to say everybody does, because some people want to just put them on an altar. You can put them under your pillow or under a mattress, especially if you're doing like fertility or love work. Putting it under the mattress is very common. So that's another thing to talk about there, is where it's kept sometimes has something to do with the purpose of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I also make gree bags, which are larger. It's more of like an altar fixture, that it's not something that you would carry with you. It's something that you would put on your temple space or your altar space, again, as an offering and as sort of a beacon of things that you want to project and manifest and illuminate in your life. A lot of people carry mojos in their, if you're a woman, they carry it inside their bra, inside their purse. A lot of people will tie them around their waist. That's a very old tradition, to tie it around your waist.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know a lot of women who carry them in their bras, just very normal. Same thing, a lot of women put crystals inside their bras. That's pretty common nowadays. At least the people I associate with.
And so are they mostly like herbs and botanicals in the mojo bag?
Yeah, so the way I do it, and I have a video on this that explains it a little bit better, but when I'm creating one, I like to follow what I call is a pyramid of Ashe. So I work from imagining a plant in your head. You would start with an earth that it grows in. So you would start with a type of earth, pardon me, that would be productive, that would go along with your goals. So say it's for business. It's better if I explain it this way. So say it's for business. So you would get like dirt from a bank. So that would be the first thing you would start with. You want money for your business, and banks are very successful, too successful sometimes. And so that's something you would start with, is the dirt from a bank, and then you would move to your root, whatever your root would correspond for business. So maybe I would use High John for that. And then you would go to the aerial parts of the plant, the stems, the leaves. So you would start to involve those parts of plants that correspond with that. And then you would get to the flowers, and then you would get to the seeds. So you have it's kind of like you're building your own like makeshift living plant inside that bag, your own little living being inside that bag, by following these layers, and then what each layer means. The dirt is for stability and for grounding, and it's your base. And then as it gets older, and the seeds for bringing in more business, abundant business. Same thing with flowers, for the business to be fruitful, for it to be attractive, for it to be bright and blooming for people. So that's the idea, is to keep those images and ideas in your head as you build it, because imagery is very powerful. I think every path will agree with that imagery and visualization is a very powerful tool for manifestation.
Absolutely. So I would assume that someone could order a mojo bag from you, and you would make it custom for them. Is that how it works?
Yes, I do have. There are some on the site that are a very specific formula already made. It's like going to a bakery and buying a hummingbird cake. That's exactly what you're going to get, is the hummingbird cake. Mm-hmm. Or you can go to the bakery, and it's a special occasion, and you need a cake made just for your grandmother's birthday, and she likes Bavarian cream and raspberry, and you want to put her name on it. You can do either or. You can go in and buy the hummingbird cake mojo. That is how it is. That's what it is. Or you can buy a custom one for whatever. Sometimes a circumstance is so specialized, it doesn't fit into the recipes that are already available. So you have to create one for somebody. Sometimes it's like I just did one for somebody's baby boy, so that's not what I offer on there to the public, because I need the child's name, and I want their birth date and things like that. So that's when customized work comes in.
Okay. I noticed there's it looks like a voodoo doll in the background there.
Right there. Yeah. Yeah. It is. I just realized that probably looks kind of creepy. This is actually a Halloween prop from one of my costumes. I went as a living voodoo doll, and I carried that around, with me on my wrist. And then when I was done with the costume, I thought, I cannot throw that away. So now he hangs up there, and he's just sort of like watching over me.
Okay. So voodoo dolls aren't part of hoodoo, or are they?
They can be. If you, Voodoo doll it's another one of those terms that's really, it's not, people have such negative connotations about it, and it's only because they're uneducated, which is not their fault, um, unless you're purposely choosing to abstain from that education, which I don't know why anybody would, but there are some paths out there that tell you you cannot educate yourself about other paths because that's, of course, that's the devil's work. So that does exist out there, that mindset, unfortunately. Um, Voodoo dolls are typically, it's just sympathetic magic. When people hear voodoo doll, they think of, sticking pins in it to hurt someone, to harm someone. But the pins are a directive. It's to, do you ever like put like a map up and like put a push pin in of places you want to visit, places around the world you want to go. So it's kind of like that. It's like sort of, it is a symbolism of nailing your goal to something, to piercing that reality with your goal, to inserting your goal into reality. So they're very often used for healing or protection. It's not, I think that pin really throws people off because you think, oh, you're sticking a pin in something, that must be painful, it must be harmful. Right. But that's not, it's symbolic. It's not literal.
Okay, that's good to know.
It can be, don't get me wrong. Right. But 99% of the time it's symbolic and not literal.
It's all about the intention.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So when you have a client, do you ever do like one-on-one consultations, or is it done online?
I will do one-on-one consultations if you have a referral from someone that I know here in my city.
Oh,
so
I see.
I am willing to do that, but because this is not only my home, but my children's home and my husband's home, and also my place of business, I do not allow, I'm not open for public consultations at my home because I have to protect them first. So my livelihood and family obviously would come, before letting a stranger in for a consultation. So I will do them, but you have to have a referral from somebody that I know and that I trust, that I obviously have a good rapport with.
Right, that makes sense. And so do you do them live online, or is it over the phone?
Yeah, I just do it through email. Okay. And that I don't know, I may like move out of the Stone Age and maybe start like doing Skype. But right now I don't feel any need to, because I think I've gotten, after doing so many consultations online, I can get a lot from a person's email with the words that they choose and how they're writing things to me. I can glean a lot of insight from those emails. I can go slowly with them. I can revisit them. I can reread them. Their words and the way they write is very important for me, reading between the lines, literally in this case, to glean everything I need to from their situation. I feel like doing it, I guess that, you could record it and I could go back to it. And, there are other things I think about, like, you could see people's, their micro emotions if you were seeing them online. And so that's a whole other thing that you could interpret, and maybe help with a consultation, help with the consultation. But yeah, I really like reading people's word choices and seeing how they write things. I can really get a lot from a person that way. So for me, that's what works best. I can go slowly, and it can be detailed, and I can give myself time to think about it. So yeah, email consultations work the best for me at this time. So yeah, I say never. It may change. I may start offering something else, but for now.
Yeah. So somebody would email you with maybe a problem or a situation or a goal, and looking for your advice on how they should proceed. Is that how it would work?
Yes. So I typically, when somebody writes me, I typically ask them to send me about a paragraph about their situation, and then usually I have to ask them for more information, because people want to give you the symptom. They don't actually want to give you the problem.
Yeah.
So they'll tell you all of this stuff that's going on, and then you have to really dig in there to get them to tell you why those things happened. So, you'll have a breakup or something, and of course, everybody is breaking up and wants to get back together. And then, when you ask them, what caused the separation? Did you have an argument or whatever? And then it's like, oh, well, I cheated. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. So now I actually have something to work with here. So why did you feel the need to, why did you feel that? So then you start breaking that down. What it typically ends up getting to is that it's a lot about fixing the client who wrote you, and not about fixing the target that they want the work on. So
Okay.
that almost always happens. But and then I'll ask, are you looking for advice on things you can do on your own, or do you want item suggestions, for things you can purchase to help you maybe create some spell work at home? Are you looking for a professional rootwork service, something that I would help you with? Are you looking for a reading? So I need to know also what you're trying to do, how you want to execute this, so we can go from there, because there's several avenues we can take, or we can take all the avenues. We can do all of them if you want. Some people like to do that. But yeah, that's typically how and where a consultation would go.
I see. It's really interesting to me how many followers you have, like on Facebook and Instagram. Something I know so little about, but obviously there's a lot of people that follow this magic, this work, and are interested in it. So, do you find like its popularity is growing?
Yes, I think it's definitely growing. There is, 10 years ago, there were hardly any books out on the subject. Forget 20 years ago. I think there's a lot of reclaiming of Black spirituality now coming in our nation, and to where people are, for so long through slavery, they were forced into a certain religion, and then of course all of your descendants after that just grow up practicing that religion, which is not their native religion, because that was taken from them. They were not allowed to practice it. It was illegal. They would have been killed for doing it. So you have generations of a race that were not allowed to practice their indigenous traditions and religions and culture. So what's happening now is that that's starting to get demystified, and people are starting to go, wait a minute, why am I still doing this when I don't identify with it, and it's not what my ancestors wanted to do? It's not what you know what I mean? So yeah. So all that's starting to, even though there are still some, that's never going to be eradicated. There's always going to be problems in that area, but I think it's starting to get broken down. So we have we have a huge surge with Black girl magic now. And so you have a whole generation of, tan, brown, and Black people that are finding empowerment in this, after it had been subdued, and it had been, taken away from them for so long.
That's awesome.
Yeah, really yeah. It's more and more, and people would get sort of, oh, there's so many books out on it now, and it's not special anymore, and it's not secret, and and just anybody can do it now. And it's like, well, you don't have any control over that. That's, if you want people to be educated, then the resources have to be out there. You can't pick and choose who's educating themselves. So education is for everyone. And if you want a better world, then everybody of every color needs to be educated about these things.
That's right. And the more people understand, the more accepting they are.
Exactly. So you may not like it initially that it's out there, but in the long run, it's going to lead to a more educated, accepting, open nation of people.
Well, that's wonderful. I so appreciate you sharing all your wisdom with us and teaching us about hoodoo and root work. I honestly had never heard of root work before finding you online, so I just feel like I really learned a lot tonight, and I'm sure our members did too.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'm glad it was hopefully, enlightening for some people out there who maybe are in the same position you're in. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity for me to get to talk a bit about this.
That was our pleasure. Well, I appreciate it, and hope to talk to you again sometime soon.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime. My pleasure.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Night Seekers.